Everyone. This is a masterpiece by Gridwise. I might make two segments out of it because, it's over 60 pages of hardcore information. I'm sure Uber and Lyft don't want to see the truth out there, but this is really what it's about. It's about reporting on the data. It's about reporting on the facts, and there's no one that does it better, sorry to say, than Gridwise. And usually Uber and Lyft go on the attack after a Gridwise report. So this is it. And I think every driver should go through it, listen to it. Starts off here, the annual Gig Mobility Report 2025. The analytics, Gridwise Analytics 2025 Gig Mobility Report is a comprehensive guide to the evolving landscape of gig mobility in the United States. It explores the movement of people and goals powered by gig workers and provides key insights into the industry trends. This report merges real-world trip data with consumer input, presenting an in-depth analysis of the gig mobility sector in 2024. We have 29 people in the house. Shout out to all of you. So again, this report merges real-world trip data with consumer input, presenting an in-depth analysis of the gig mobility sector in 2024 and offering a forward-looking perspective on the trends shaping 2025. Pancho's in the house. Enjoy it, my friends. So I'm going through this here. Gridwise Analytics extensive anonymized gig mobility database underpins this year's findings, offering a comprehensive view of gig economy trends in 2024. The data set includes 171,173,390 trips completed by more than 260,912 drivers, covering 603,819,147 miles from pickup to drop-off, and generating a total of 1,942,860,455 in driver earnings. I mean, you can't get more data than this. And by the way, I'm making this video 10 minutes, you can look it up, after we had quite an earthquake here, right here in Thousand Oaks, Calabasas areas. We just had a big earthquake and shook me up a bit, but life carries on. And this has to get out, earthquake or not. So this analysis spans a diverse range of gig platforms, including Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Grubhub, Instacart, Amazon Flex, Spark, Shipt, Favor, Roadie, and GoPuff. In addition to mobility data, insights from a consumer survey of 1,000 respondents provided valuable perspectives on pricing sensitivity, tipping behavior, platform loyalty, gig worker earnings, and safety perceptions. This combination of large-scale trip data and direct consumer feedback offers a detailed and data-driven look at the evolving gig economy landscape. Thank you, Gridwise. Thank you, Freddie. So here and there, I'm going to give a shout out, but I promised Gridwise to get this out for them, the table of contents. And they really want to share this data with all the drivers. No matter what Uber and Lyft will always tell you, or DoorDash, or these other companies, Gridwise keeps the facts real. So Rideshare in 2025, examining trends that are redefining urban mobility. Next topic would be delivery decoded, insights into consumer demand for 2025. Delivery favorites, the brands leading the way in 2025. Earnings insights, wins and challenges in gig work per service. Driver work hours, key statistics for food, grocery, and parcel delivery. Next one is base pay, bonus, and tips. Diverging pay structure. Tipping trends how riders are shaping driver earnings. One app or many, the platforms driving worker loyalty. Gig economy milestones, 2024's most memorable achievement. From mega trips to marathon shifts, gig drivers' wildest records. Shout out to Washington. Event economics, how festivals and concerts supercharge consumer demand. Next one is surviving the storm, hurricanes, ripple effects on gig mobility. Airport rideshare in focus, the hubs and holidays that moved the needle. Consumer insights on pricing, how costs shape the gig service use. Rideshare safety, a big one. How do men and women experience compare? 2025 key findings and strategic takeaways. And then the methodology. Welcome you all. So looking at rideshare in 2025, examining trends that are redefining urban mobility. In the United States, rideshare platforms like Uber and Lyft have become deeply embedded in daily life. They serve as vital transportation options in urban centers and provide crucial connectivity in undeserved areas. Rideshare market share. Uber's market share grew from 70% in January 2023 to 76% in December 2024, reinforcing its position as the dominant player, the number one in the rideshare industry. This 6 percentage point increase over 23 months reflects sustained growth and strengthening market control. That's a fact. Uber market share increases 6% since January 2023. I'll leave the link to the entire graph below, but there it is. There you can see Lyft in pink, and then you can see the majority in black. That's Uber. Rideshare customer prices from January 2024 to December 2024, the median price for rideshare services, excluding tips, listen to this, rose modestly from $14.91 to $15.99, a 7.2% increase for the customers, right? This is similar to the 7.6 increase we saw from January to December 2023. The average price grew from $19.88 to $21.28, a 7.04% increase. These trends reflect inflationary pressures, adjustments in base fares, and higher operational costs, including fuel and vehicle maintenance. And there we have the graph. I'll be sharing that below. Marcel's in the house. Shout out. Our surveyed rideshare consumers expressed price sensitivity, with 72.3% of respondents stating they would reduce or stop using rideshare services if prices increased further. In stark contrast, only 19% indicated higher prices would not affect their usage habits. Additionally, 12% of respondents acknowledged having safety concerns, but reported no alternative transportation options. This emphasizes their reliance on rideshare services despite reservations. Isn't that interesting? The rideshare efficiency, tackling idle miles in 2025. Efficiency is central to the sustainability and profitability of rideshare platforms. Idle driving time continues to be a key metric, reflecting opportunities to streamline operations, improve earnings, and reduce environmental impact. From 2023 to 2024, the percentage of idle miles driven by gig drivers during their shifts only increased by 0.4%. This trend suggests that the idle mile rates have not changed significantly. The approximately 22% idle miles rate shows that there is room for improvement in driver efficiency and utilization. Rideshare idle miles slightly increased in 2024. Average idle distance miles in 2023, 562. In 2024, 577. Average monthly work distance in miles, interesting, right? In 2023, 2,010 miles. In 2024, 2,011 miles. Pretty much the same. The percentage idle of total miles driven, 21.9% in 2023, 22.3% in 2024. In micro areas, drivers average 212 idle miles per month, 25% of total miles, compared to 575 idle miles per month, 22% of total miles in metropolitan areas. Despite these differences, the 22 to 25% range reflects consistent driver behavior and demand patterns across areas. Please share the video, like and subscribe. So micropolitan drivers drove slightly more idle miles per shift. The statistics in micropolitan, average monthly idle distance in miles 212, in metropolitan 575. That's quite a big difference. Average monthly work distance per mile in the micropolitan areas 621, in the metropolitan areas 2007, and the percentage of total miles driven in the micropolitan 25%, metropolitan 22%. Uber's market share grew from 70% in January 2023 to 76% in 2024. So the delivery decoded for the delivery drivers. Food and grocery delivery platforms remain essential to the gig economy, driven by convenience and consumer demand. But as competition intensifies, platforms face shifting preferences and market dynamics that shape growth opportunities. Hit the like and subscribe button, please. Food-focused delivery market share in 2024 among our three most prominent food-focused driver delivery platforms. Uber Eats grew its market share to 30%, reflecting a 5 percentage point increase from 2023, while DoorDash maintained leadership at 67%. So here DoorDash is the clear leader when it comes to food delivery. Any DoorDashers out there, please comment. Down from 72%. DoorDash down from 72%. Now they're at 67%. Grubhub accounted for the remaining 3%. And Grubhub is really slowly dying here. I mean, they're cutting back their workforce. They just announced it in the news. So I don't really see a future for Grubhub in food delivery. I'll be surprised if they feature in the 2026 statistics. DoorDash led at 67% as Uber Eats gained market share. So this is really a breakdown here. Majority DoorDash, Uber Eats, and a little sliver at the top there, Grubhub. Consumer preferences reveal that when choosing delivery platforms, 74.6% value convenience, 37.4% prioritize time savings, and 32.3% seek cost savings. Approximately 28.5% of surveyed consumers reported increased delivery use, whereas 23% indicated a decrease due to pricing or quality concerns. Isn't that interesting? Like and subscribe. Hit the like button. It looks like this. Thank you, everyone. So, how delivery services are evolving. Delivery trip volume data shows significant variation across platforms, with some maintaining an intense concentration in a single segment, while others gradually diversify into grocery and retail deliveries. Unified strategies with segment-specific focus. In 2023 and 2024, 95% of Spark's delivery trip volume was in the retail segment. This indicates a consistent distribution concentrated in retail deliveries with minimal trip volume in food or grocery. Grubhub's delivery trip volume remained very food focused, with 96 to 97% of its trips classified as food deliveries across 2023 and 2024. Grocery and retail segments accounted for a small share of Grubhub's total delivery trip volume. Diversification among food focused platforms. Both Uber Eats and DoorDash saw gradual increases in the proportion of delivery trip volume attributed to the grocery and retail. Grocery delivery trip volume for Uber Eats rose 5% in 2023 to 7% in 2024, while retail trip volume grew from 9% to 11%. Regarding DoorDash, grocery delivery trip volume increased from 7% to 9%, and retail delivery trip volume grew from 7% to 8%. These changes indicate a growing share of grocery and retail trips in overall delivery trip volume, diversifying the service mix beyond food. San Bernardino in the house. So here we have a graph, the grocery and retail deliveries increases at food-focused delivery services. I'll leave the graph below. And then delivery trends reveal how preferences vary across neighborhoods. Chicago as a case study in localized food and beverage demand. Delivery trip volume data from Chicago showcases how preferences for fast food, healthy meals, and coffee vary across neighborhoods. These patterns highlight the distinct demand dynamics within urban areas, offering valuable insights for businesses to tailor their services to local needs. Fast food reigns in social hubs. Lakeview, North Elstead, 60,657 leads the pack with 4.5% of fast food delivery trip volume, followed by Wrigleyville, Buena Park, 60,613 at 3.9%, and Uptown Andersonville, 60,640 at 3.6%. These neighborhoods show a strong appetite for convenient on-the-go meals, reflecting their bustling social atmosphere. McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Taco Bell. There's the breakdown. Healthy Eats thrive in urban chic neighborhoods. River North West Town, 60,654 tops the healthy food trip share at 6.9%, with Lincoln Park, Old Town, 60,614 close behind at 6.8%, and Magnificent Mile, Streeterville, 60,611 at 6.1%. So they're doing the example highlighting Chicago here. Demand for health-conscious options is strongest in these vibrant, upscale neighborhoods. Carver's Sweet Green, a left heat map of delivery volume share by zip codes, and then right the delivery volume share for the top 3 zip codes from heat map and their corresponding neighborhoods. Coffee fuels Chicago's day-to-day. O'Hare, Dunning, 60634 leads coffee delivery trip volume at 5.3%, followed by Irving Park, Avondale, 60618. I guess those are the codes at 4.7%, and Uptown Andersonville, 60640 at 3.9%. These more residential suburban areas have fewer non-chain cafes. More chains like Starbucks and greater distances make delivery a more convenient option. So there's sort of the breakdown of Starbucks. I'll show you in the link below. The most popular days for food delivery in 2024. Food delivery's busiest days in 2024. The busiest delivery dates remain consistent with the previous year, with holidays and surrounding days showing the highest delivery volumes. These spikes highlight people's continued reliance on delivery services for convenience during celebrations and social gatherings. So the holidays in 2024 show higher food delivery activity. That's normal. So if you are a food delivery driver, you will know this, or you'll embrace this, or you'll embrace this in 2025 or 2026. The night of Thursday, July the 4th, Independence Day, the night of Monday, January the 1st, New Year's Day, the night of Wednesday, July the 3rd, before Independence Day, the night of Monday, September the 2nd, Labor Day, the morning of Wednesday, February the 14th, Valentine's Day, the night of the Monday, 27th, Memorial Day, the evening of the Wednesday, the February the 14th, Valentine's Day. That's when I call the protests. Evening of Wednesday, July the 31st, night of Friday, July the 5th, early morning of Independence Day, and night after Independence Day. Afternoon of Monday, January the 1st, New Year's Day. Interesting, right? Among polled consumers, convenience dominates food delivery preferences, cited by 74.6%, followed by time savings, 37.4%, and cost savings, 32.3%. Promotions or discounts appeal to 30.7%, which reinforces the importance of ease and affordability and driving in demand. While 28.5% of polled consumers report increased delivery usage, nearly 23% use it less, signaling a split trend influenced by pricing and quality concerns. The trends reflect evolving consumer behaviors shaped by convenience, affordability, and flexibility. The coming year promises a dynamic landscape as the delivery sector continues to adapt to the ever-changing demands of consumers, drivers, and the broader gig economy. Delivery favorites. Here we go. Delivery favorites. Brand loyalty and consumer preferences shape the landscape of food and grocery delivery services. Leading brands continue to dominate, underscoring the importance of reliability, availability, and brand recognition in attracting and retaining customers. Makes sense. Most popular grocery chains. Walmart solidified its position as the top grocery store for delivery as 2024 came to an end, reflecting its dominance in meeting consumer demand for convenient and reliable services. Here's the top 10 grocery chains. Number 1, Walmart. Number 2, Walgreens. Number 3, Dollar General. Number 4, Safeway. Number 5, CVS. Number 6, Target. Number 7, Aldi. Number 8, Publix. Number 9, Mecher. Number 10, Albertsons. The most popular restaurants. McDonald's remained 2024's number 1 restaurant for deliveries, despite challenges like an E. coli outbreak. McDonald's resilience, customer loyalty, and extensive reach have solidified its top position in a competitive market. So McDonald's leads the pack. Number 1, top 10 restaurants, McDonald's. Number 2, Taco Bell. Number 3, Chick-fil-A. Number 4, Wendy's. Number 5, Chipotle. Number 6, Starbucks. Number 7, Wingstop. Number 8, Burger King. Number 9, Pizza Hut. Number 10, Papa John's. And I hate to admit it, but I've actually eaten food from all 10 in my lifetime. How about you? Why don't you comment? So Macy's delivery growth soars 4,500% in 2024 through strategic innovation. In 2024, Macy's delivery volumes through DoorDash surged 4,500%, driven by a bold new chapter strategy to modernize operations and enhance customer convenience. While Macy's first partnered with DoorDash in 2020, the retailer's renewed focus on digital expansion and fulfillment efficiency in 2024 significantly accelerated adoption. By offering same-day delivery without time slots, queues, or minimum purchase requirements, Macy's improved accessibility and streamlined the shopping experience through initial volumes where low. This dramatic increase highlights the scaling impact of third-party delivery partnerships. Leveraging DoorDash's extensive driver network, Macy expanded its fulfillment capabilities, demonstrating the operational and revenue potential of on-demand delivery. So this was Macy's delivery exploded in 2024. Other companies should pay attention here. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so far. Shout out to everyone in the live stream. This surge in delivery growth underscores how retailers, not just restaurants, can leverage data-driven strategies to optimize their delivery operations and form strategic partnerships that enhance efficiency and customer reach. Earnings insights. This is where it gets really, really interesting, my friends. The wins and challenges in gig work. Maybe this is where we really pay attention. Lakeland, Florida, Kevin Hawthorne in the house. The gig economy continues to evolve in 2024, highlighted key shifts in driver earnings, pay structures, and engagement patterns across platforms. While some sectors experience notable growth, others face stagnation, underscoring gig work's competitive and dynamic structure. The rideshare sector performance. With average weekly gross earnings of $513, Uber drivers led the ride-sharing category in 2024. That's nothing. Average weekly gross earnings. Weekly gross earnings, that's pretty damn sad. This figure marks a 3.4% decrease compared to 2023. Weekly hours work slightly increased by 0.8%, while earnings per hour per mile were $23.33 and 90 cents respectively. So you were basically working, what this is you were working more and you earned less. I mean, that's pretty damn sad. So Gridwise defines working hours as the overall time spent by a worker across periods 1 to 3. For example, inclusive of idle time between requests from the start of the first trip to the end of the last trip in the working session. And that is how you have to look at it, not at the ways Uber and Lyft try to represent it. So this is pretty pathetic and pretty sad. Average weekly gross earnings $513. Lyft, average weekly gross earnings $318. That is sad, my friends. Food delivery sector highlights. DoorDash has experienced a 4.8% increase in weekly earnings, reaching $240, alongside a 5.2% rise in weekly hours worked. Hourly earnings were $12.23, and per mile earnings stood at 92 cents. Favor drivers saw weekly earnings grow by 3.4% to $155, with significant increases in earnings per hour and per mile, which rose to $11.97 and $1.16 respectively, despite a 13.1% reduction in weekly hours worked. Pancho says, delete Uber and Lyft. Sam says, invest in their stocks. I'm not going to invest in those trashy stocks and support them. Gross earnings for Uber Eats drivers increased by 5.1% to $178, driven by a 2.1% rise in weekly hours worked. Hourly earnings were $14.96 per mile. Earnings were 96 cents. DoorDash, average weekly gross earnings $240. Favor $155. Uber Eats $178. That's pathetic, my friends. Per Parcel delivery leaders, Amazon Flex showed the strongest growth in gross earnings with an 18.1% increase. Pay attention to this. To $413, average weekly hours worked rose by 20.4%, while hourly and per mile earnings were $22.06 and $1.36 respectively. So the weekly hours worked rose by 20%. So you're working 1/5 more of the time. That's bad. Roadie earnings grew by 23.8%, reaching $154. That's nothing, with average weekly hours worked increasing by 17.2%. Hourly earnings stood at $13.66, and per mile earnings rose to $1.04. We went through that, Amazon Flex versus Roadie. Grocery delivery trends. Shipped earnings grew by 8.5%, reaching $258, with a 2.1% rise in average weekly hours worked. Hourly earnings increased to $20.45, and per mile earnings remained steady at $1.73. I see a lot of drivers doing shipped. Anybody here doing shipped? Spark drivers maintained relatively stable metrics with weekly earnings of $323, a 0.7% decrease. Hourly earnings remained at $21.22, while hours worked dropped 2.8% and per mile earnings dropped 4.3%. Instacart drivers earned an average of $194 per week, an 8% decline. Average weekly hours worked dropped by 4.9%, with hourly earnings at $13.86, per mile earnings at $1.78. Uber and Amazon Flex drivers made the most weekly gross earnings, but also work the most hours. Let me repeat this. Uber and Amazon Flex drivers made the most weekly gross earnings, but also work the most hours. And we'll give you a breakdown in the graph below. The link will be below the video. Increased in weekly hours worked often correlate with higher gross earnings, as observed on platforms like Amazon Flex, Roadie, and DoorDash. However, we don't see the same trend when hourly and per mile earnings change, highlighted differences in workload distribution across the platforms. Platforms like Favor and Shipped recorded gains in both earnings and per hour and per mile, possibly due to higher driver pay and or greater efficiency in driver operations, reducing idle time and miles. Uber, Lyft, and Uber Eats experienced decreases in both earnings per hour and per mile, while maintaining steadily or slightly increased weekly hours worked. That's really a sort of a highlight of this report. The driver work hours. Hours work, and these are basically the key statistics for food, grocery, and parcel delivery. Driver work hours. Hours worked provide valuable insights into sector demand and driver engagement, highlighting trends across gig platforms. The data suggests that drivers gravitate towards sectors with steady opportunities and growth potential, with hours worked often reflecting shifts in consumer behavior, platform incentives, and market dynamics. Food-focused delivery hours increased steadily by 9.5%, from 45.2 hours in Q1 2023 to 49.5 hours in Q4 2024. Grocery-focused delivery saw a significant decline, dropping 16.2% from 37.6 hours to 31.5 hours over the same period. Parcel-focused delivery experienced the highest growth, rising 55.5% from 33.8 hours to 52.6 hours, reflecting a surge in e-commerce activity. I think it has a lot to do with safety as well. Rideshare focused hours remained consistently high, growing modestly by 4.4% from 62.9 hours in Q1 2023 to 65.6 hours in Q4 2024. Parcel focused driver monthly hours worked overtakes grocery in 2024. Average monthly hours worked per driver by service type. Service type for delivery service is defined as the most common type of delivery for that service. First graph is food focused services, then grocery focused services, then parcel focused services, and rideshare services. See the graph below. The data suggests that drivers gravitate towards sectors with steady opportunities and growth potential, with hours worked often reflecting shifts in consumer behavior, platform incentives, and market dynamics. The base pay, bonus, and tips, a diverging pay structure. Base pay, bonus, and tips. You might want to comment here. Parcel delivery services led in base pay reliance, with 96.1% of earnings derived from fixed compensation, offering unmatched stability for drivers in the sector. Rideshare drivers also strongly rely on base pay, which accounts for 82.5% of their income. Very interesting. Grocery delivery services followed, with 52.9% of earnings coming from base pay, reflecting a moderate balance between fixed and variable income. Food delivery drivers showed the least reliance on base pay at 44.3%, emphasizing a structure heavily dependent on variable earnings like tips. Tips made up the highest share of earnings for food delivery drivers. You see, so that's interesting here. The tips made up the highest share of earnings for food delivery drivers. You're not making money on food delivery drivers. They're relying on the tips, contributing 53.4% on the income, underscoring a strong dependence on customer gratuities. Grocery delivery drivers also benefited significantly from tips, which accounted for 45.7% of their earnings. By contrast, rideshare drivers derived just 10.4% of their income from tips. 10.4%. And parcel delivery drivers relied on tips the least at 3.9%. So parcel deliveries, you're not really getting great tips. Bonuses played a minor role across all sectors. Rideshare drivers saw the highest contribution from bonuses at 5.5%. Bonuses accounted for 2.2% of food delivery earnings and 1.4% of grocery deliveries. Parcel delivery drivers reported no bonuses, reinforcing the sector's reliance on base pay. Hit the like button, my friends. So this graph here, food delivery had the highest percentage of pay composed of tips, and you can take a look at the graph below. Insights on base pay, tips, and bonuses. Rideshare. This is about rideshare. The insights on base pay, tips, and bonuses. The base pay, Lyft's base pay made up 78% of total earnings in 2024, down from 84% in 2023. Uber's base pay remained the majority of earnings, increasing slightly from 82% in 2023 to 83% in 2024. Tips. Tips contributed a small and stable portion of total pay. For Lyft drivers, tips accounted for 9% of the earnings in 2024, down from 10% in 2023. Uber drivers saw no change, with tips making up 11% of their earnings in both years. Bonuses made up a growing share of Lyft drivers' earnings, increasing from 5% in 2023 to 11% in 2024. Uber's bonus portion remained unchanged at 5% of total pay. Lyft bonus percentage of pay doubled while Uber's declined. And just to add another percentage, which is obviously not in here, when it comes to private trips, you're looking across the board. So they said Lyft 9%, Uber 11%. With private trips, it's 20% or higher. Base bonus tips for food delivery. Base pay, Spark drivers base pay accounted for 63% of total earnings in 2024, down from 68% in 2023. DoorDash and Grubhub saw slight increases, making up 44% and 45% of earnings respectively. Instacart's base pay rose to 51%, while Uber Eats declined by 1%. The tips contributed a significant portion of earnings. The majority of pay for all services except Spark drivers saw an increase from 32% to 37%, while DoorDash and Instacart declined slightly to 53% and 49% respectively. Grubhub remained steady at 51%, and Uber Eats tip portion increased by 1%. Bonuses. The bonuses made up a small percentage of total pay. DoorDash remained at 4%. Grubhub dropped from 6% to 4%, while Instacart, Spark, and Uber Eats had little to no bonus earnings. Interesting. For food deliveries, Spark drivers saw 63% of earnings from base pay. That's crazy. So the graph here highlights DoorDash in 2023, DoorDash in 2024, Grubhub 2023, Grubhub 2024, Instacart in 2023, and Instacart in 2024, Spark in 2023, Spark in 2024, and Uber Eats in 2023 and Uber Eats in 2024. Take a look at the graph, it will be below. Spark drivers depend more on base pay than any other platform for food deliveries, while DoorDash and Uber Eats maintain a higher reliance on tips to drive earnings. Bonuses remain a minor component across all platforms. Base bonus tips in the grocery sector, the base pay, Grubhub's portion of earnings from base pay for gross delivery rose from 46% in 2023 to 59% in 2024. DoorDash remains stable, increasing slightly from 53% to 54%. Instacart's base pay held steady at 47%, while Spark and Uber Eats saw minor declines, with Spark dropping from 70% to 68% and Uber Eats from 60% to 57%. The tips in the grocery sector. Instacart drivers earned the largest portion of earnings from tips, rising from 52% in 2023 to 53% in 2024. Grubhub declined, dropping from 42% to 35%. And that's probably just through the quality of the service. While DoorDash remained unchanged at 43%, Spark's tip percentage of total pay grew from 30% to 32%, while Uber Eats increased from 39% to 43%. Bonuses. Grubhub's percentage of total pay from bonuses fell from 11% in 2023 to 6% in 2024. Bonus remained minimal across other platforms, with DoorDash decreasing from 4% to 3% and other services reporting 1% or less. For grocery deliveries, Grubhub showed a 13% increase in base pay percentage. Grubhub increased its percentage of base pay for grocery deliveries in 2024, while Instacart drivers continued to benefit from the highest share of tips across platforms. Bonuses declined for most services, indicating a shift away from performance-based incentives. The base, bonus, and tips in the retail sector, base pay, Instacart's portion of earnings from base pay remained at 47% in 2024, the lowest among retail delivery service. DoorDash held steadily at 60%, while the portion of Grubhub's base pay increased from 66% in 2023 to 73% in 2024. Spark maintained a high percentage of total pay from base earnings at 71%, while Uber Eats saw a slight decline from 67% to 65%. Tips in the retail sector. Instacart drivers earned the highest portion of earnings from tips, holding steady at 52% in 2024. Grubhub's tip percentage of total pay declined slightly from 27% to 25%, while DoorDash tips increased marginally from 37% to 38%. Spark stayed at 29%. Uber Eats increased, with tips rising from 33% in 2023 to 35% in 2024. Bonuses. Bonuses remained a small percentage of total pay across all retail delivery services in 2024. DoorDash held steady at 3%, while Grubhub declined from 7% in 2023 to 2%. Instacart, Spark, and Uber Eats reported negligible or no bonus earnings. Grubhub has the highest base pay percentage for retail deliveries. Instacart drivers rely more on tips than drivers for other retail delivery services, which highlights its emphasis on customer gratuities. Meanwhile, DoorDash relies more on base pay, providing more predictable income for its drivers. Now, the base and bonus and tips for parcel deliveries, listen up. Base pay dominated earnings for parcel drivers in 2024. Amazon Flex portion of earnings from base pay remained at 96% across both years, while Roadie's base pay percentage of total pay increased slightly from 96% to 98% in 2024. Tips. Tips contributed a small portion of earnings in the parcel delivery sector. Amazon Flex saw no change, with tips making up 4% in both years. That's not much. Roadie's tip percentage of total pay declined slightly from 4% in 2023 to 2% in 2024. Bonuses. Bonuses remained non-existent in parcel delivery, with both Amazon Flex and Roadie reporting 0% bonus earnings for drivers in 2023 and 2024. Base pay is most important for drivers at parcel-focused services. That's true. Parcel delivery platform like Amazon Flex and Roadie heavily rely on base pay, providing drivers with consistent earnings and minimal variability from tips or bonuses. This structure contrasts with other gig sectors that lean more on variable pay elements like tips. The drivers who get tips on Amazon Flex are typically those in the grocery delivery segment. Tipping trends. Listen up. Tipping trends, a good one. How riders are shaping driver earnings. I might even make a standalone video just on this. Maybe I'll take segments later and make individual videos with more details. The data highlight sharp contrasts in tipping dependence across gig economy platforms, underscoring how service models and customer expectations shape driver earnings. 73 to 79% favor. In 2024, favor drivers earn 73 to 79% of the income from tips, which indicates a significant reliance on gratuities as a primary component of earnings. 50 to 60% GoPuff, Instacart, Grubhub, DoorDash, and Uber Eats. These platforms average 50 to 60% of earnings as tips, reflecting a balanced approach between tips and base pay. Spark drivers, 30%. Spark drivers average 30% of earnings from tips, indicating a stronger reliance on base pay than food-focused delivery services. 10% Uber and Lyft. Rideshare drivers earn 10% of the income from tips, highlighting a structure that primarily relies on base pay with additional contributions from bonuses and incentives. I'll add to that 20% is what private trips will guarantee you. 20%. 4% Amazon Flex. Amazon Flex drivers in the grocery delivery segment consistently receive tips averaging around 4% throughout 2024. 2 to 4% on roadie, which is BS. I will forget about roadie. Trash. In 2024, roadie drivers earn 2.4% of the income from tips, reflecting a structure with a stronger emphasis on base pay, typically a parcel delivery service. All provided by Gridwise, by the way. Shout out to Gridwise. So the favor stands out with the highest percentage of pay in tips, while rideshare and parcel delivery services have the lowest. Tipping models reveal how services design shapes driver earnings. Tip-heavy platforms like Favor, Reward, personalized services with higher income peaks, while base pay-focused platforms such as Roadie and Amazon Flex offer stable, predictable earnings. Hybrid models, including DoorDash and Uber Eats, balance flexibility and security, whereas rideshare platforms like Uber and Lyft prioritize steady pay through base wages and bonuses. The data highlights sharp contrasts in tipping dependence across gig economy platforms, underscoring how service models and customer expectations shape driver earnings. So one app or many? Here's the question. Do you get on one app or do you many? I would, because deactivations, this is just personal, it's got nothing to do with the Gridwise report. This is from me directly. Because deactivations are so rampant, because wrongful deactivations are at an all-time high, we see that at activationhero.com, at GigRocket, we're handling more deactivations than ever before. I strongly suggest that every rideshare and food delivery driver operates on many apps or, on a combination of rideshare and food delivery. But don't rely on one. When that is taken away from you, you're in trouble. So the platform's driving worker loyalty. Driver loyalty reflects a preference for consistency and simplicity, with most drivers favoring single platform use despite available multi-apping options. So I understand why drivers just favor a single platform despite using multiple. I strongly suggest, 2 phones or an app or like a tablet and multiple apps, so you can continuously compare. Where am I making the most? But you want to maximize your earnings in a day. And you can really do that if you have multiple apps open up, sending you offers. Patterns suggest that incentive programs and predictable earnings are critical in retention strategies. Driver platform loyalty and shift patterns in 2024. Our 2024 findings show that 74% of gig drivers stick to a single platform, while 26% engage in multi-apping. Multi-apping is defined as having worked for more than one gig platform in a given month. Looking at individual driver shifts, the preference for single app use is even stronger. Our data shows that in 2024, 89% of the shifts relied on one service, 9.7% involved 2 services, and just 1% used 3 or more apps simultaneously. That's sort of like the 1% were only using 3 or more apps. That number has to go up. Puncher says delete DoorDash and Amazon Flex. These patterns reinforce drivers' prioritization of workflow efficiency and simplified operations over juggling multiple platforms. The cross-category flexibility. When looking at driver loyalty within a specific delivery or service type, the food delivery sector leads with 52.5% of drivers loyal to this category, driven by high demand and wide appeal. Rideshare follows with 26.8%. Interesting. Although its lower loyalty indicates more drivers supplement the income by working across sectors. Mixed category drivers make up 16.2% of the workforce, which demonstrates the flexibility of the gig economy. These drivers balance work across food, rideshare, grocery, and parcel sectors to maximize earnings. Grocery and parcel delivery have the lowest loyalty within their delivery type, with only 3.4% and 1% consecutively of drivers dedicated exclusively to these categories. These points to platform opportunities in these sectors to improve driver incentives and engagement. Majority of gig drivers work within the food category, while 16% with multiple. Percentage of drivers loyal to one service type of gig driving in a given month versus percentage that mix types. Service type of delivery services is defined as the most common type of delivery for that service. So there's the graph. DoorDash, a case study in driver retention. DoorDash has the lowest multi-apping rate, with only 30% of its drivers using platforms compared to Grubhub, where over 70% of drivers engage in multi-apping. Platforms like Uber Eats, Lyft, Favor, and Instacart show moderate multi-app using rates ranging from 50% to 60% of drivers working across multiple platforms. Uber Eats drivers often switch seamlessly between Uber and Uber Eats, leveraging both services for increased flexibility and earnings potential. DoorDash has the lowest percent of multi-appers in the most loyal drivers. Percent of drivers in each service that multi-app that month. Multi-apping is defined as a driver having a record of a trip with another service within the same month. DoorDash incentives including peak pay bonuses, delivery challenges, and the Top Dasher program build loyalty by offering consistent earnings and priority access to orders. So I think Uber Eats could really could learn from this. DoorDash is earned by time and earned by order options provide drivers with flexibility and predictability, which helps to retain drivers in competitive markets. Despite lower hourly wages compared to other food delivery platforms, drivers on DoorDash achieve higher overall weekly incomes. Furthermore, DoorDash's popularity as a leading food delivery platform outside of Uber Eats ensures consistent demand, and this reduces the need for multi-apping. Platforms like Uber Eats leverage their integration with Uber. This allows drivers to switch easily between rideshare and food delivery and likely contribute to higher multi-apping percentages. Now, we are halfway through the report. This is the first segment. Tonight, I will be bringing you the next 30 pages, the second segment of Gridwise's annual report. We've already done an hour here. We will do another hour of this report and cover the second half of the report in the second live feed segment. So I appreciate you all. Leave your comments, please. Super valuable data in there. You really want to listen closely and sort of see, hey, where is the money? Where are gig hours? Where are gig drivers, gig workers applying their hours? Why are they applying their hours? Pay close attention to that. The other thing I would also recommend after reading half the report, again, the second half report of the report follows later. But one thing I would really recommend to anyone is that you start looking at multi-apping. Don't just focus on one app or two apps. Use multi-apps and then figure out what time slots earn you the most. And in case you get wrongfully deactivated, you can always fall onto app 2, app 3, app 4, app 5. You can download 6 different apps and start testing out where you are making the most money and where you, obviously most money is number one, but also where is the safety the highest? Huge factor, safety. And I'm pretty sure they'll be discussing safety in this report as well. So again, second half of this report will follow tonight. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening so far, and leave your comments below. Thank you.